Hey guys, today I want to talk about annulment versus divorce. And there's been a lot of talk about this lately because there's some bills going through, and it looks like we might actually have a divorce bill that might make it through in the Philippines. As a lot of you guys don't know this, but divorce is something that doesn't happen in the Philippines. They have annulments, but they don't have divorce. And annulments are a little bit different, not much different. I mean, they annul it just like you'd never been married before. But in some provinces and some sections of the Philippines, it's actually hard to get through. In other places, it's easier to get through, and it's almost guaranteed that it's going to go in through some sections. But it's costly. It costs about anywhere between $3,000 to $6,000 US, and it can take anywhere from 6 months to 2 years, sometimes longer, depending on the people and what's going on and the deal between the two people that's going on. But if they do this divorce law, it would probably be much quicker, probably less than a year, maybe 6 months, or maybe even sooner than that. And then you probably have like a waiting period like they do in the United States or whatever. But there would probably be a thing where you go in front of the judge. And this happens with annulments too, because there's division of property, things like that. So it's really not much difference. But a lot of guys are saying, well, Steve, if they do the divorce law, these women are going to be able to rake you over the coals, and they're going to be able to do this to you. They could do that to you anyway. You know what I mean? It's just part of the way things work over here. It's the Philippines, and it happens that way back in the U.S. So why would it be any different over here? It happens over here now. If you break off with a girl and you're not even married to her, you can have issues like that. I mean, you can run into these issues no matter where you are. It doesn't matter about divorce versus annulment. Some people think, well, that's going to wreck the whole Philippines. It's going to wreck the women here. It's going to westernize them. They're already being westernized, and I find it kind of funny when I hear that, because I think people, when they come here, they think it's like Fantasy Island over here, and everything's going to be honky-dory, and all of a sudden everything falls apart, or things start to happen. And I'm not saying it happens to everybody, but it does happen over here. And it happens just as much over here as it does in the United States. It's just different because there's no divorce, or because the laws are different. And sometimes I would say the girls over here have kind of a leg up on the guys, as far as like taking them to court and stuff like that, and causing problems for them. And they use the court system to their advantage to go after expats over here. And when you're dealing with expats, a lot of these guys are older and can't take the stress of that. I mean, all of us have been through something with a girlfriend over here, once or twice at least, sometimes 3 times or more. I mean, I know guys over here that have gone through a lot of issues with women over here, and it's a big stressor as you age. And to think that divorce law is going to change things over here and make it worse for us, actually, I think it might even make it better, because it'd be taken care of mostly in the court. Let your lawyer deal with it. That's the way I look at it. Lawyers over here are fairly reasonable. They're not expensive. They're not super expensive over here. Just look at it this way. It's probably going to happen. It probably should happen, because here's the bad thing about the one thing that I do not like over here is this. And I'm not putting down the Philippines for this. I understand the Catholic values of not having divorce. Okay, I fully get that. I understand it. But in all fairness, people should be allowed to leave their ex-spouse or whatever, rather than live, basically, if you're religious, in sin, I'll say, okay? Because a lot of these people are Catholic. And what happens is, because of the no divorce law, people live with a boyfriend when they're married or whatever. And even though it's supposedly illegal, most of the time the government doesn't chase after this stuff for many reasons, because of the fact that both parties usually move on, and it's usually one party has to file on the other party. But if the other party's already living with somebody, they're not going to file on the other party, because that party can go after them too. So it kind of balances things out, and that's what happens. And a lot of people don't understand all the way things work over here. But a lot of the older women, when you meet them over here, they've already got that issue, where they're already married, separated, and they're trying to move on or whatever. So a lot of people just choose to live together or what have you, and try to work their way through an annulment or whatever, and pay the $4,000, and then get married or whatever, or just stay single and just live together as a life partner or whatever. That's part of what most people do over here, is they just kind of live together. And a lot of guys come over here, and this is where a lot of the mistakes happen. Fools rush in where angels fear to tread. I've said that many, many times on here. And a lot of guys come in here and they're like in a rush to get married. Oh, I'm 75 years old, Steve. I'm marrying this girl. I've met her once, and I spent like 2 weeks with her. And I went back home and we talked and talked. And then, I asked her to marry me online, and she says yes. And I'm going to come over and I'm going to get married within 2 weeks. And, I'm going to take her back to the States. Big mistakes. You got to know somebody more than that. A lot of Filipinas can play a game with you because they're looking to get back into the States and stuff like that. And I'm not putting down Filipinas when I say this. I'm just saying it's just part of the culture here, because there's a lot of decent Filipinas here, and there's probably more good Filipinas than there is bad Filipinas. I'll say that. But you have to be very, very careful here in that you really got to watch who you're going to take on as a partner over here, because a lot of things can happen. There's a lot of dangers out there because there are scammers. Poor people are looking out for money for their family. They want to supply their family with money. That's part of their culture. Remember, it's part of their culture. They look out for their family. So if somebody marries somebody rich, they're expecting that wealthy person to look out for the family. And if you don't understand that, you shouldn't marry a Filipina. Okay? Now, I'm not saying all Filipinas are like that, because they're not. You need to get your Filipina to understand that, hey, if we get married, this is what's going to go on. I'm the boss. This is my money. If you want to work, you want to send some money to your family, that's fine. But I want you also contributing to the family, to us. Unless you're wealthy enough that you can handle that all on your own, that's different. A lot of guys can. Just be careful, guys, when you're out there and you're picking and choosing between women. And don't just jump in with the first one that you meet or anything, because that's just downright dangerous. Because I think if you don't look around long enough, you're just going to hook up with the first person you meet. That's when you're going to have problems. Everybody here has their own story, and they can tell you some really big horror stories, okay, over here. Everybody has a horror story over here. If it's not a horror story, it's just a story of how they met somebody and the woman scammed them or something like that. It might be something minor, or it's that they saw something happening and they just said, this isn't for me. And then sometimes the woman tries to come back at them and just tries to burn them or whatever, just for the sake of burning them, just because the guy wanted to break off, whatever. This happens on a daily occurrence over here. And this is what you got to be careful of over here. We talk about this all the time. And remember, if you get married over here right now, you cannot get divorced. You'd have to go back to the States to get the divorce. And I believe you have to register it back over here. I'm not sure about that, but these are the complexities of getting married in the Philippines, and it's why a lot of guys don't get married over here. I'm not against marriage. I'm 100% for marriage if it's the right person. But make sure it's the right person before you do get married. And remember, sooner or later in the Philippines, we will have a divorce law probably. It's my guess that it would probably be here within the next 4 or 5 years. There'll be some things that you have to write out and change things. I think within the next 4 to 5 years, we're going to have, some sort of divorce law over here that is going to go through. It's going to get through. Because I think people are tired of living in sin after being married and separating or whatever. And it's very costly for that annulment. If they make a divorce law here, I believe they'll make it cheap enough that everybody over here can afford it. And I'm sure there'll be a mad rush on the divorce courts as soon as that happens. They'll have to have a divorce court, and there'll just be a mad rush of people flooding the courts going in for divorces rather than paying the $4,000 for annulments, because divorces over here would probably be a lot cheaper. Because when you compare things here back to the US, everything over here is fairly cheaper. The lawyers, the court system, it can still be expensive, don't get me wrong. It can be very expensive to go after somebody over here that you want to go after legally. It can be very difficult and very costly. It can also be kind of dangerous sometimes in some places. People over here handle things differently, and sometimes you have to be very wary of that. And especially when you're going through an annulment or a divorce or something like that, families, friends and stuff like that, they might even get involved or whatever. You don't know. You know what I mean? It's just part of the culture here. It's what people do. I'm not saying there's anything different in the United States. The United States has the same thing to a certain extent. Sometimes families get involved. Sometimes women get nasty. Of course they get nasty. They're going through a divorce or whatever. But remember, it's not going to change things over here. It's not really going to, people think it's going to change the Philippines into the United States. It's not. That's just my opinion. You know, I mean, you guys can write your comments down there and see what, you know, I'd love to see what you guys think. And just be nice with the comments on there. Don't get nasty. Just, you know, I'm okay with people putting down, you know, a different opinion down there, but don't get nasty about it. There's no reason to get nasty about it. You know, this is just agree to disagree, and that's it. You know, but anyway, I'd like to hear your comments. It'd be nice to hear them on there, and I'm sure everybody else would like to read the comments. God bless, guys. Take care. Hope you enjoyed today's show, and be sure to like and subscribe, guys, and be sure to watch the ads also. It does help the channel. Thank you, guys.